So today we've got some news around the new P and V Special Series set. Apparently it's going to be called History Collection, so it looks like a reprint set. There's about 340 different cards in this set across 24 clans and credit elementals, so we'll be getting credit elemental reprints as well. Probably something like Honley, maybe Dismal might be in it. They were in Premium Collection 2019, but obviously the box toppers will kind of spread out. It's a bit like Sword Me. They're not quite as easy to get because you have a lot of other promos as well that are kind of competing for that pool basically. So this set, there seems to be two different types of reprints. So we might be getting just normal reprints, but also some that will get enhancements as well. So they're basically errata ring cards, which is kind of a thing that goes on in other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Notably actually. So to go over, like the first screenshot that you can see at the top there shows basically 4 different cards there. You can see Arlim, you can see Shandy. So Arlim's basically the counter charge perfect guards, which every clan has. They're probably going to keep the skill the same. Because they probably just think it's good enough as it is, and besides we've seen them being played in Steam Maidens, but obviously there's other clans that have their own version of it as well. The counter-charge PGs are pretty good, but they're not really played much, strangely. A bit more surprising than you think actually, that they haven't actually seen as much play, because I would have thought that maybe in this era the skills are quite good. Like you would think there would be some decks that would be playing them, right? And then there's also Shandy as well. So Shandy is basically a stride assist. There's like one in every clan, just like with counter-charge perfect guards. But they're basically based around the boss. So you may have seen, if you're someone that came in through V-Series, you may have seen these cards which all have the same skills, where you check the top 5 of your deck and you look for a grade 3. Most of them are actually based on G-era counterparts, but there are a few exceptions. So like Aqua Force, Link Joker, and Bermuda Triangle, for example, they end up having a different unit altogether as their kind of grade 3 searches. But the other ones from other clans, like say, for example, Shadow Paladin with Brandwin, or maybe something like, let's just say Sisyphus from Royal Paladin. Those cards are all actually based on the G-era counterpart with the same name that do something similar, where they look for grade 3 specifically. But the difference is obviously the V-Series ones are quite good in terms of being able to just ride. So if you ride them, you're being basically able to use a skill. Whereas the G-era version, you had to call them to rear guard, so it did make hands a bit more awkward to draw into the early game. Plus, you trying to kind of find a stride for to pitch. Honestly, the grade 2 game was great back in those days, because at least if you didn't find the hand you needed, you can kind of buy time with the grade 2 game until you drew what you needed. Which I know some people did complain about grade 2 game. I think grade 2 game was great, and to be fair, it actually helped more because of things like this. So the old cards, they didn't really have that advantage of being able to be used on the Vanguard Circle, which meant you had to have one grade 1 to ride, but then you also need to have the stride assist to then call to rear guard so you can actually use the skill in the first place. It's also one of the reasons why I kind of considered Regalia a bit bricky, and why I did some weird stuff with those lists, which I can go into another video as well. But I have a very strange deck profile used for Worlds. Not to go into tangent, that will go up at some point soon, and I'll explain like all the weird adventures I had for 2 months on deck building that. But Shandy, it's kind of funny. This card, basically, it says it's going to, well, it says you can basically search for Loris, right? But Loris hasn't really been seen for a long time. We've had the Rainer crit being retrained as well. So the crits that you've seen, the Sentinel criticals, they're also based on a G-era counterpart, which are the 5k power to Vanguard with Soul and Draw crits. So you can see in the second picture, there's a Heart Thump worker there. That's like obviously a Sentinel crit in the V-Series as well for Gear Chronicle. So maybe we might actually see some of this, an actual Loris support, well sorry, an actual Loris in the set, or maybe like the support cards actually being around Loris, because we've not had that in ages. Like Loris has not been included in V-Series, but they've actually made her critical support card, strangely. So we'll just see what goes on there. So they're probably going to keep those skills the same. I think Steam Breath Dragon is also kind of virtually the same as well as the G-era version, roughly, as well, which is the card from the Stride deck set, so D version of it. There's also 2 other cards that they've put in. So we've got Join Over the Cross, and we've also got the Draw Perfect Guards. So Draw Perfect Guards is the same one in every clan. Everyone gets them. They're probably not going to change anyway, because to be fair, they're popular enough to be played as it is. And obviously you're just going to add more disparity to play usage by doing that, by giving them more skills. So it's probably going to stay the same as well. Join Over the Cross, though, that's a VR, so that might be hinting that we're getting VR reprints. There is supposed to be a reissue protection that sort of expires. So I think this is meant to be the set that actually introduces the VRs again. But because it's 340 card types, they probably won't be as easy to get. So I've actually had the theory that maybe they'll crash the market for V, because they did reprint the hell out of all the triple res and below, so there's not actually that many good cards to pull in the V product, which is kind of a bit of a problem when you consider buying V stuff, and obviously for stores as well that's trying to shift the V product, because if basically you've got V Clan Collection already reprinting stuff into like, you know, the abyss of how little value you can sell it for, then obviously that doesn't really give as much incentive. So that did cause maybe VRs to also be a bit more like chase cards than they were before, because obviously if the VR is the only thing left that isn't reprinted, then well, I guess that's got to be the money card if you're going to make back any money on anything in that set. So that's kind of partly why I thought maybe VRs might become a bit more easy to get. Maybe they were giving us that warning for like a few years ahead of time, so that anyone who's not really looking to keep their VRs should probably try and sell them instead of holding them. But I don't think they're doing that. I think they're going to basically make things still a bit harder to get, just so that they can kind of, well, I guess make it so that the secondary market doesn't get too disrupted, and obviously stores can still shift things around. It's more like it's like quantitative easing, really. It's like just kind of push a bit more supply out so it's not ridiculous, and also just kind of measure up to the demand appropriately. But obviously you don't overprint things. You can argue maybe it's a little bit underprinted as well, but I think they're trying to avoid the worst extremes, which you could say sort of happened to some extent with Revival Selection. But I don't think that risk exists in this set from what it looks like. So that's one thing there. Another thing as well is like the on-hit strides. So we can see Blade there, which has an on-hit. If you hit with it, you basically search for grade 2 from your deck. This card is apparently getting a new skill. And same with Heart Thumb Worker, which is the critical that goes with the basic respect grade 3 bosses represented in Jira. So this is the Chrono Jet version, Heart Thumb Worker, similar to the Sentinel criticals, but obviously it's based on the G versions, which have the whole 5k to Vanguard when moved into Soldier in battle. So you basically attack your Vanguard, you put it into Soul. It's like the Generation Break 1 crits that you may have seen in Premium Clan Collection, or was it? Sorry, Premium Collection 2019. So Premium Collection 2019 had GB1 crits, which gave your Vanguard 10k power. It's similar to that, but it's not GB1 and it's only 5k power, and also the triggers are the old school 5k power and 10k shields. So they have the downside of actually requiring a specific name, but obviously now it looks like they're going to buff them up and make them more playable. So that's really good for anyone that has SPs lying around, because there were a lot of SP critical triggers as well. And honestly, I do really like the old Kusanagis that I've got out there, as well as maybe some Vitties as well. It would be nice to actually play those cards again. And to be fair, if those cards become more playable, then there is a chance people might actually play grade 1 perfect guards. So it might be a good shout that they're actually reprinting the grade 1 perfect guards, if that's the case. If the theory is that maybe people might not play as many draw perfect guards, that's a possibility. But they've kind of like gone ahead there as well. Blade, though, losing his on-hit ability is a possibility, maybe. I'm not sure if they'll go for like a very budget kind of reprint option, maybe like sort of like filler cards, or if they go for like insanely high card quality like in Premium Collection sets, where they've just basically given you only a couple cards per clan and just tried to make it sort of count for the most part. I'm not sure if they'll do that this time around, because to be fair, if you have like this many cards in a set, you could probably get away with some purposely making some mid-tier cards. However, that does make me kind of wonder. Mystery Flare Dragon was also in one of the first GTR decks. That was an on-hit check top 5 or 4 or something. If they all have different grades, you can basically skip your opponent's turn. I wonder if we're going to be seeing the return of Mystery Flare Dragon in Premium, in obviously the original card form. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for that as well. So the errata is obviously kind of controversial, because some people don't really like the idea of having to refer to card text. I think at this point, enough kind of damage, or we're kind of just already kind of gone there now, to the point that erratas aren't really that big of a deal anymore. And when I say damage, I mean like all the erratas that we have in the English game, obviously. So we've had like the recent Clan Collection, V Clan Collection Volume 5 and 6, which not everyone's going to be able to replace, because I've just gotten some copies actually at Worlds just the other weekend. I didn't even realize that they were actually exchanging them at Worlds. I think I knew about the Springfest ones, but I didn't know about the Worlds ones. And they basically gave a reminder by the time basically a lot of people already arrived in LA. So I couldn't really bring all my clan collection cards because I didn't actually get that kind of warning in advance to know about it. So I happened to have brought with me, I think, a few Battlesister cards. So I think it was Mocha, if I remember correctly. Or did I? No, I didn't bring that actually. I left my Battlesister at home. No, sorry. I brought the energises for my Regalia deck. So I exchanged them right before the tournament started, so I can play the actual proper printing that says return them from your drop zone, which wasn't actually included in the basically the misprint version. I also didn't realize actually while I was there that Octo-Ray Sorceress was also misprinted, and I never even noticed it when I read it. So yeah, that one I also got to exchange well, and it was the FR version as well. So I happen to have brought my Hexorb Dragon just so I can play some standard friendlies. I don't know how many games I've even played. I don't think I played that much in the first place, to be fair. I think I played maybe with Declan, or actually I'm not even sure if I did or not. I think we were going to play a game, but then I said, actually I want to practice for Prima tomorrow. But I feel like I'm not sure if I used my standard deck while I was away or not. Honestly, it's really late now, so I can't really think very well. But yeah, I happen to bring those decks with me. So I think mostly because most people aren't really going to events, they're not going to be able to actually replace their errors anyway. So I think in that case, it kind of makes you kind of not really that fussed if cards get errated. But also, we've had Globe Magus and Bulwark Dragon, which technically are revertible, I think. If they wanted to go that way, they can always go back with that. They never actually printed a physical errata for those because they haven't really done any kind of, I guess, sub-clan reprints in the English game. Sorry, in the Japanese game. And I don't think those two cards even got reprints in English. I'd have to check actually on that one. I don't think Bulwark was reprinted, but I'm unsure about this. So obviously, with all these kind of like erratas that have happened, it's something that can take place. But also, if they're using this set as an opportunity to errata cards, there is a possibility they might do something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where in Yu-Gi-Oh! They basically took a lot of cards off the restriction list because they errata them and changed the effects. That could potentially happen in this set. Like maybe some of the other cards we're getting, we might maybe get Ichikishima errated. Maybe they'll just like tone down the skill of it or something, maybe take away the power gain. Maybe they'll bring back Gas Steel in some form. Maybe they'll bring back like, say, Katrina or Taro, I guess. Zinc? I don't know. I think Zinc's just... that one should easily be just straight up unbanned, no questions asked. But yeah, there's definitely like a whole bunch of cards that they could try to take off the restriction list, like what Yuga did, so they don't clutter it up, which would be I think would be quite good actually if they did that as well, because then not only so we're not mainly getting a set with new cards, but we're actually getting old cards back. So you can bring your old copies as well and play with the errata text, so you don't even have to buy into this set, which is probably why they're not making it as easy to get the cards. Like they're spreading out through more cards because they don't entirely need to. But there is the argument that maybe making the reprints more accessible is better even for legacy players, because maybe they would rather play with the corrected text versions as well. So there is kind of two sides to it as well, like whether you want to defend the value of the cards by not overprinting it, or whether you want to give more accessibility to the erratas as well. It would just be a case of something like maybe the fish version of Lupina, because you can't read that card, so but you can play it legally as long as you bring some sort of translation. Apparently, I'm not entirely sure. It's weird. So yeah, that's it's a very interesting set. I'm not really like opposed to what's going on in this set because of what we've had already. So with all the erratas in this game that we've previously had, like some more erratas at this point, it already feels like we've kind of gone down a path of no return. So it feels like a different year. Like if this was like, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago or something, I would probably say like hell no to this set. But I think it's kind of suited to the time we're in right now to have some of this. And I think to be fair, it'll probably do more good than bad. I think the thing I like about this is that it's creating excitement again for the G series as well, because they're bringing back G cards and making them better. So that's obviously something we've been missing for years, because ever since the V reboot, we've just had generics and none of these sort of like GB1 cards, except for the one critical trigger, which every clan has. But we've had very little in terms of like interesting stuff based around G. It just feels like we've been having VRs, and VRs replacing anything from the G era, and all these GIF markers flooding the format in premium. So if there's if it's looking like we might get the G era days again, and they're just going to make the G cards basically enhanced so that the V era cards aren't just taking over the format, then I think this is definitely going to make the game more interesting as well to play. So I'm looking forward to this set, I'd say, for these reasons. I do like Legacy, and I'm always going to basically say anything that helps Legacy is great as well, because it's definitely been missing. I mean, yeah, you could say the best thing we've had is maybe like, I mean, we've had some booster cards, but there's also been like the V-Clan collections especially, which have gone back to like archetypes from the old series as well. But obviously you did have to replace your boss cards, so you couldn't really play some of the old stuff from back then. But this is actually encouraging to be able to play old stuff again, so that's actually really good. So yeah, looking forward to more news, and I guess let me know down below what you think. I can understand there's gonna be different views in it, for sure, and I kind of want to hear different angles in it, to be honest. So until then, I will see you guys later. Bye.